everyone, Trish Charleston here, also known as the Cowboy's wife. I'm no expert on anything and I don't claim to be, but I have been alive for 56 years, so I have some funny stories. Come saddle up with me and take a ride, and maybe I can make you laugh or smile or cry or give you something to just think about that day. Let's do this. Hey, good morning, everyone. Trish Charleston here, and today I want to talk about riding in taxi cabs and talking to perfect strangers. And I know I drive the Cowboy crazy because every time we get in a cab, I'm just instantly chatty, and he is too. I mean, we ask the guy driving or the woman driving where they're from, and it's always just so interesting to find out about their lives and if they live in the town that they're driving in or if they've always lived there. And a lot of times they have foreign accent, and so or hardly speak English at all, and so you want to know where they came from. And I just think that's really interesting. And so this last week we were in Las Vegas for the finals, and we were in many cabs and had many drivers. And so the first guy that I was talking to, and I had lots of questions, we ended up talking about of course, they always want to know why we're there, and it's pretty evident with the Cowboy because he's wearing a cowboy hat no matter where we are. But that last week, everyone had a cowboy hat. I couldn't find my family anywhere. It was really annoying because normally I can walk into a crowd and know exactly where my family is because we are the only ones, wearing cowboy hats, but not obviously not at rodeos, but at dinner, my guy's easy to find. But so we get in this cab and we get to talking about horses and racing and competing and talking about why we were there. And he was questioning me about the cost of the horses, which, as we all know, is astronomical. And he starts telling me about he was from Cuba and they race pigeons. And I'm like, come again? I mean, I have a couple of pigeons in my barn right now that I'd really like to shoot, but they're not, the kind that just poop on you in the park pigeons. And I always think of Mary Poppins when I think of pigeons because feed the birds, you guys are probably too young to remember Mary Poppins, but you should look it up because it was pretty good. But anyway, they raised these homing pigeons. It was the coolest story I've ever heard. And I thought, it's just amazing what you can learn from people when you actually talk, when you put down your phones and you actually have a conversation with a perfect stranger. I mean, I did not know this guy from Adam. He was beautiful, for the record. This young man was so pretty. He needed to be like on a billboard. He was so handsome. And I felt really bad for him because we got him again. He drove us to the airport afterwards, and my in-laws were really sick. And they're both just hacking away in the car. And this poor handsome boy was just mortified. All this, we had talked for, literally 30 minutes the time before. And this time he didn't say a word because he didn't want to breathe in anybody's germs. But he was talking about these homing pigeons. And the coolest part, they go on these races. Well, sometimes I'm very blonde, and I could not figure out how they would race. What do you mean? How would you know when it was ended? There's not a finish line, because a homing pigeon, obviously, hence the name, homing, they go home. And so they have a tracking device on their legs. They all start at the same place, but they know when they land, and that's how they win the race. And I'm talking they win giant amounts of money, and these pigeons are worth, oh my gosh, I think he said some people pay millions of dollars for a bird. I thought it was really stupid to pay millions of dollars for a horse, but I feel a little bit better. I mean, I haven't paid millions of dollars for a horse, but I'm just saying I do feel a little bit like it's more realistic than paying millions of dollars for a pigeon. Although these birds are super smart, and I don't know the lifespan of a pigeon, and I hope they have really good insurance. I should have given them a card. I don't know that we insure homing pigeons, but I bet we could figure it out. But they would take them in these trucks and they would drive so many miles away. The farthest race he's ever done, and I think was in Las Vegas recently, and these birds flew for 500 miles, and I think he got third place. It was super cool. But so they take him in these trucks, and these trucks are the weirdest looking things. He was showing me all these pictures while driving in Las Vegas, so that wasn't the coolest thing ever, but it was. But we didn't die, so he obviously did a good job. But they would literally load in these weird trucks. They almost look like, well, like bird trucks, except they almost look like not cages like you see chickens and turkeys and stuff in when they're hauling them, but more like tiny little cattle haulers. I mean, they look like tiny little, like a pot, except little individual pots all packed on a truck. That's just what I could see of it. I need to Google it and do some more research because it's fascinating. But anyway, they'd win all this money, but they would drive so far away and then just release the birds, and then they would time them with this tracking device. You know, you'd wake up and just think one day, man, I really want to race homing pigeons. How do you even get started? Well, in Cuba, or Cuba, if you're this hot guy that I was talking to, and gosh, I wish I could talk like he did because he has a beautiful accent and he was just pretty. But anyway, that was the culture. That was their culture. And we all have, you know, we all are raised in different cultures. Well, the next cab we get in, we were with this black guy, and he was a hoot. I mean, he was not a small man, and he was super funny, but we were visiting about the horses, and he was real fascinated with the rodeo. It's funny because most of the people that work there, they don't go to the rodeo, and they always talk about how they love Vegas when the Cowboys are there, because they said it's the safest time of the year, and that they love it because the crime rate goes down, and the Cowboys are all so kind and polite and generous. And I said, yeah, because it's the only vacation they get. And that's also when we all go to shop, you know, for Cowboy Christmas and get all the things for, you know, for Christmas, cool Christmas gifts that, you know, that actually they cater to our lifestyle. And so it's fun stuff that our families would like and enjoy. And anyway, so we got to visiting, and somehow I said something about the beautiful stadium, the football stadium, and how pretty the stadium was. And I said, "Is that your team?" And he said, "Yeah, he's a big Raiders fan." And I made the mistake of saying that I was a Chiefs fan. I thought he was going to make me get out of the cab. He goes, "I'm stopped. You can't ride with me anymore." And he was completely kidding, but a little bit serious. And he hates Mahomes. I'm like, who could hate Patrick Mahomes? That guy is precious. He's an incredible athlete. He's a kind humanitarian. He gives and gives and gives. I mean, granted, he's got a lot. His plate is full with his little wife, which I feel like my husband feels the same way about his little wife. But he's a great person. And the Chiefs team, and I said, I'm an even bigger Butker fan. I mean, I love Butker. But anyway, we got to talking about sports and how we're all just these crazy fanatics and the things that we do for sports. I said, I am absolutely convinced that the Chiefs cannot win unless I am wearing full Chiefs regalia. And I said, I have to be, if I'm not at least have on a sweatshirt, even if I'm traveling and I'm not watching the game, if they are playing, I am repping the Chiefs. And he goes, oh yeah, no, I totally get it. That's sports. I mean, I said, when my daughter played softball, I claim that I'm not superstitious because I think it's ridiculous. And I think it's a little unbiblical, and I only believe, you know, in Jesus, but I don't believe in all that voodoo nonsense, but I am a little bit superstitious when it comes to sports. And he said, you know, this guy was so funny because he said that is the part of the joy of sports, and a part of the sport is how passionate people are about it. And it's hilarious because if we're losing, I will literally go and add clothing. Like I was sitting, it wasn't even cold outside one day, and I had on a stocking cap and a scarf, and I would do whatever I had to do to get that, you know, game to the end. And when Quincy would pitch, I would do the same thing. I would like, oh, what earrings did I wear yesterday? She pitched really good one game, or we won the first game, and you had to play two more. And so I would try to wear the same thing. And it's just hilarious about how silly that we are about such things. When I was in Vegas last week, every night in the lobby, I would meet Jamie Steiner, and she's Rocker's mom, and Rocker was continuing to win the world, but he'd won a round, and the night that he won a round, she had eaten pizza and a donut. And we're just sitting there getting ready to get in our cars to all go to the rodeo. And every night we would all meet in the bar area, and their family would be there too. And so we'd visit every night because I just love her. And this crazy man comes up to us, and he has this box of pink box donuts, which they were all over the place. They're excellent donuts, but we didn't know this guy from Adam, and he was a little bit crazy, and he said something like, it would help my soul if you would have one of these donuts. And I said, I appreciate it, and I would love to help your soul, but I'm not eating one of those donuts. Well, it dawns on Jamie that she had eaten a donut the day that Rocker won the round, and she had already had pizza that day, but she hadn't had a donut, and she said, I'll eat one. And this guy was so happy. She goes, I'm not going to eat the whole thing, but I'll take a few bites. And she just takes this donut out of this stranger's box and eats it. It was hilarious. I took multiple pictures, but that's what I'm saying is that we will do anything for our kids or our team to win, even eating, a stranger's donuts. So good stuff. But we do that. We get into they suck you in, and it's kind of fun. I mean, I literally have a Ted Lasso Believe poster, because if you've never seen Ted Lasso, oh my gosh, it's a must watch, because they would touch this poster every time they would walk out of the locker room, because Ted had them believing that this had some kind of magical power. Obviously, he has me believing the same thing, because I bought one. I also paid to have one framed to put in the office, because it's just cool. And they all, in one of the episodes, I'm just going to go ahead and run it for you. One of the guys that quits the team, or he doesn't quit the team, but he is a manager, and he gets mad because he gets all self-absorbed with how great he is. It's really the head coach, not him. That's awesome. And the fact that the team, what the coach was doing was more than winning games. It was about bringing people together. And that's the whole idea. That's the whole thing about sports in general. It shouldn't be about, your team is better than my team, which is, we're all so competitive, and that's the fun of it, as long as you can keep it in that circle, or in that box or whatever, because people can get crazy about it, and they can lose their minds and fight and silliness. But this man got so overwhelmed with himself, and so he felt so sorry for himself, because he wasn't getting the credit that he felt like he deserved for winning plays and things that he would give them to do, and that it was all about Ted and not about him. He tore up their Believe sign, and these guys were destroyed over it. I mean, you guys have seen baseball shows. This one guy would, have a dead chicken in his locker, or sacrifice things to some gods. They burn incense, and they don't change their socks, and they do all of these funny things before they think that it has some kind of power. Well, we know as Christians, the only power that we have is through Jesus, and it doesn't have anything to do with what we wear or what we, but it does have a lot to do with who we worship. And so we got to be real careful with things, because there's a fine line between, being a good sport and getting, crossing into some weird idolatry. But last week, on a completely different note, I was teaching a class. I've been teaching a class on The Chosen, and it was the episode where Jesus had sent the disciples out to do what he had taught them, and they just felt like they were unprepared. I mean, one of the disciples even said, did I miss a class? Did I miss a sermon? Did I miss something? And that would totally be me. And that's kind of how I feel every single day when I start writing. And it's like, really? That's what you want me to say, God? I mean, I still don't know what I'm doing. And I feel like I'm flying blind a lot of the times. But that's why we read our Bibles and we stay in scripture. Jesus had told him what to do, and he showed him how to do it because they'd been with him for a little while. And he said, I want you to go do what I did. I want you to heal the blind, and I want you to heal the sick and, cast out demons. And they were freaked out. And I can't even imagine how scary it would be. Well, when they came back, some of them were, when they would do the things that he told them that they'd be able to do, because they were, that he was going to be with them. They were going to be doing them through him, which they understood, which was cool. But some of them said they felt powerful. And isn't that dangerous? And yes, I mean, that is dangerous and that happens to a lot of people. When you get all this glory all of a sudden for doing something that was done, that it's through him. Everything we do is supposed to be for God's glory, even sports. And one of the things I love about the NFR the most is almost every single competitor gives God the glory, and they mean it. Obviously some of them just say it because it's something you say. And I appreciate that too, because they're still, and I don't know their hearts. I mean, maybe they absolutely do believe it, but I think when they honestly, fully give God the glory, and that is precious. And that's one of the coolest things about rodeo, is that we still pray and we still, say the Pledge of Allegiance, and that nobody's going to take that away from us, because that they do believe that we can do all things through Christ. But here's the deal, folks. You can do anything through him, but he's not going to make you win or lose. I mean, at the end of the day, good Christian people still lose. And as much as it broke my heart to see Coleman not win the world because of the person that he is, I think that God will use Shad just as much. Coleman's already doing it. I mean, Coleman is doing it every single day. He is a rock star for Jesus every single day. And I think, a lot of the times when things like that happen, that you feel like, oh my gosh. I mean, Shad worked for that sucker all year long. He made a deal with himself, and he was hurt, and he still did it. I mean, that is impressive. And he thanked God for it. And I appreciate that. And I think God will use him for it. I think he will. But am I devastated that I felt like, Coleman earned it through his teaching and preaching? And I'll tell you a story about Coleman Proctor. Years ago, we were at Reno, I think, either Reno or Cheyenne, and Emma was struggling. She was having a tough year, and she had some, just bad stuff kept happening. And Coleman's got a driver, and I don't know her at all, but I know that she's a good Christian woman. And I know that she reached out somehow. I don't know if it was through Coleman or to Emma directly, but she wanted to pray for her because she could feel that something bad was like looming around Emma, and took the time to do it. And man, if somebody wants to pray over my kid, I am in. Please take the time to do it. And I just could not. I have never been able, I'll never forget that as long as I live, that this man is out killing it, doing his job, but he's never just thinking about himself. He's concerned about everybody around him, and he's just that's a good person. So there's there's a lot more to life than just promoting ourselves. I mean, we're not supposed to ever promote ourselves. We're supposed to promote God. But he gave us all these things to enjoy. And so I think it's a huge thing when we can love sports and we can love to do all these things, as long as we remember that there's a reason that you have the talent that you have. My nephews this week had a great week. The youngest one especially. Oh my gosh, Colton was just killing it. I mean, but his mom and dad taught him how to rope, and he's watched his brother and his uncle, and we've helped him get great horses to rope on and stuff. But God gave him that ability. It wasn't anything that he gives you all of your abilities. Everything that you have that is a gift comes from God. And even racing pigeons, just, I guess the whole moral of the story is, obviously we're supposed to be where our feet are, even if you're in a taxi cab, if you're at a ball game, if you're in at a rodeo, at your job, talk to the people around you, put down your stupid cell phones, and be where your feet are. Like, I know Dr. Elko says that, so does Bob Goff. Be where your feet are. And you should, because you learn a lot of things that you would never learn when you're staring at your screen. And always just remember to just keep trying to do the things that God puts on your heart to do, and keep trudging along one day at a time. And, I hope that one day I get to see my daughter at the NFR. But if I don't, that's going to be fine too, because I know that God's given her lots of gifts, and I know that she's going to reach people in other ways. So have a great week. Thanks for listening.